How I went from struggling to success, the prosperity formula. What if I told you that the difference between struggling and thriving isn't luck, isn't talent, and isn't even hard work, no, but a formula? A prosperity formula that most people never learn, and yet it's the missing link that explains why only a small percentage of people ever truly break free from financial stress, self-doubt, and the cycle of scarcity. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, I'm doing everything I can, but I'm still stuck? Maybe you've read the books, watched the motivational videos, even pushed yourself harder than ever, and yet the results aren't showing up. Why does this happen? Why do some people seem to magnetize wealth, success, and opportunity, while others, just as capable, just as intelligent, keep hitting invisible walls? Here's the truth. Success doesn't happen by accident. Prosperity isn't a random gift handed out to a chosen few. It follows a pattern, a predictable sequence, a formula that, once you align with it, shifts the way you think, the way you act, and the way the world responds to you. I know this because I've lived both sides. I know what it's like to wake up in fear, to wonder if things will ever change, to feel like prosperity is something reserved for others. But I also know the exact moment everything shifted, the moment I decoded the formula and went from struggling to succeeding. In this video, I'm not just going to motivate you. I'm going to guide you step by step through 10 powerful principles of the prosperity formula. These aren't cliches or empty promises. They are timeless truths, adapted for the world we live in today. Truths that have transformed my life and can transform yours if you're willing to apply them. So if you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever felt like you're meant for more but don't know how to get there, stay with me, because what you're about to hear could be the turning point you've been waiting for. Let's dive in. Topic 1. The breaking point. From struggle to awakening. I need to be honest with you from the very beginning. Success didn't come easily to me. For years, I felt stuck in a cycle of endless effort and little reward, as if I were running in circles, chasing results that always slipped away. I'd watch others build lives of abundance and opportunity while I struggled to keep my head above water. And deep down, I carried this heavy feeling that maybe I was destined to remain stuck. Maybe success wasn't meant for me. Each morning, I would wake up with a weight pressing on my chest. It wasn't only the stress of bills or financial uncertainty, it was the fear that perhaps I wasn't good enough. I kept asking myself the same questions. Why is this happening to me? Why do I work so hard and still fall short? Why do doors open for others but seem to close for me? Those questions haunted me, and for a long time I believed the problem was out there. Bad luck, lack of resources, wrong timing. But the truth, as painful as it was to admit, lived inside me. My external struggles were only reflecting my internal struggles. The chaos in my finances, the instability in my career, the feeling of scarcity and fear, they were mirrors of my beliefs, my doubts, and my mindset. And that realization, as uncomfortable as it was, carried a seed of hope. Because if the problem lived within me, then so did the solution. That's when I began to understand something that would change everything. Prosperity is not just the money in your account, the car in your driveway, or the house you live in. Those are expressions of prosperity, not prosperity itself. Prosperity is a vibration, a state of alignment, a formula. And when you are aligned with it, doors open, opportunities arrive, and everything flows differently. But when you are not aligned, no amount of pushing or working harder can truly shift your reality. That's why I stayed stuck for so long. I was chasing prosperity while being out of harmony with it. Have you ever noticed how some people with fewer resources than you manage to create success almost effortlessly? They seem to magnetize wealth, relationships, and opportunities. It's easy to call it luck, but it isn't luck. They are in tune with the prosperity formula, whether they realize it or not. I, on the other hand, was blind to it until I reached my breaking point. And that breaking point was anything but glamorous. It came in a quiet, desperate night, staring at unpaid bills and drowning in self-doubt. I was exhausted, not just physically, but spiritually. I was tired of pretending to be strong, tired of telling myself it would all work out when nothing was changing. And in that stillness, a thought rose within me that shifted everything. What if this struggle isn't here to destroy me? What if it's here to teach me? That single question cracked open the door to transformation. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" I began asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" And with that shift, I stopped being a victim of my circumstances and became a student of them. I started to see my struggles not as punishments, but as signals, invitations to grow, to see deeper, to align with something greater. It became clear to me that every struggle carries a hidden code. Each challenge, each obstacle, each painful moment hides within it a lesson designed to prepare you for your next level of success. My struggle was with money, fear, and self-doubt. Yours might be something different: a job that drains you, a relationship that holds you back, or the inner voice that whispers you're not enough. But whatever it is, it's not here to break you down. It's here to break you open. For years, I thought my struggles defined me. I believed being broke meant I was destined to remain broke. I thought failing meant I was a failure. But those struggles were never my identity. They were the training ground, the place where the seed of prosperity was waiting to be planted. And once I understood that, I began to see the prosperity formula unfold in front of me. It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a flash of inspiration or a single miracle moment. It came step by step, like a puzzle slowly coming together. The more I leaned into my struggles, the more I listened. The more I discovered the timeless principles of prosperity that had been there all along. I realized it wasn't about chasing harder or working longer. It was about aligning my mind with abundance, my words with possibility, and my actions with the person I wanted to become, instead of the fear that had held me back. Looking back now, I see that my breaking point was also my awakening. Without the pain, I wouldn't have searched for answers. Without the struggle, I wouldn't have discovered the formula. That night of despair became the foundation of a new life, one where prosperity became a natural expression of who I was becoming. And so I ask you, what is your breaking point trying to teach you? What is the struggle in your life right now that you've been resisting, ignoring, or wishing away? What if that struggle holds the very code to unlock your prosperity? I don't believe you're here by accident. If these words are reaching you, it's because there's a lesson waiting for you to embrace. The first step of the prosperity formula doesn't begin when you finally make money or when someone gives you a lucky break. It begins right now, in the middle of your struggle, your doubt, your fear. Because that struggle is not your prison. It is your soil, and if you allow it to open you instead of crush you, it will plant the seed of prosperity that grows into a future you can't even imagine yet. This is where my journey truly began. This is where the prosperity formula was born. And this is where your own transformation can begin. Right here, right now. Topic 2. Discovering the prosperity formula, the core principle that changes everything. The real shift in my life began the moment I realized that prosperity was not something I had to chase. It was something I had to align with. For years, I thought success was out there, hidden in the right job, the right opportunity, or the right timing. But what I came to understand is that prosperity begins within, long before it shows up in your outer world. And that was the first truth of what I now call the prosperity formula. Let me paint the picture. Imagine you're a radio. If you're tuned to the wrong frequency, no matter how much you turn up the volume, you won't hear the music you want. The signal exists, but you're not aligned with it. Prosperity works the same way. The frequency of success is always broadcasting, always available. But most people live their entire lives tuned to static. They amplify the wrong station, one filled with fear, scarcity, doubt, and limitation, and wonder why their lives never play the music of abundance. My biggest discovery was this: you cannot receive prosperity while staying tuned into the vibration of lack. At first, this sounded like wishful thinking. I was skeptical. I thought, how can my thoughts change my bank account? How can my mindset change my reality? But as I studied the lives of people who had built true success, not just financial, but holistic prosperity in health, relationships, and purpose, I saw the same pattern repeat itself. They all carried an inner certainty, an unshakable belief, a decision to align their thoughts and actions with abundance instead of scarcity. That alignment became the engine that created their external results. I began to test it for myself. Instead of waking up and immediately drowning in worry about bills, about failures, about what might go wrong, I trained myself to ask a different question. What is possible today? I replaced my old morning ritual of fear with a new ritual of focus. Simple practices like gratitude, visualization, and affirmations weren't magic spells. They were tuning mechanisms. They adjusted my inner frequency, and slowly I noticed changes. Opportunities I would have overlooked before began to appear. Ideas flowed more easily. Conversations led to doors opening. It was as if the world outside me was responding to the signal I had started broadcasting within. Here's the core principle. Prosperity is not about forcing results. It's about creating alignment. When your inner world matches the frequency of abundance, your outer world starts to reflect it. That's why so many people work endlessly hard and still remain stuck. They're trying to force prosperity while staying aligned with lack. It's like planting seeds in barren soil. No matter how much you water them, nothing grows because the ground itself is not fertile. Alignment makes the soil fertile. Alignment makes prosperity inevitable. This discovery shook me to the core because it meant that I wasn't broken. It meant I didn't have to wait for a miracle or rely on luck. I had the power right now to shift my frequency and create change. The prosperity formula wasn't something reserved for the chosen few. It was universal, timeless, and available to anyone willing to do the inner work. And the first principle was alignment, choosing to step out of the static of scarcity and tune into the music of abundance. But alignment isn't a one-time choice. It's not like flipping a switch and never touching it again. Just like a radio, you can drift off frequency. Doubts, fears, and setbacks can pull you back into the noise of lack. That's why prosperity is a practice. Every day, you get the chance to realign. Every thought, every word, every action is either keeping you in tune with abundance or dragging you back into scarcity. The prosperity formula is not just a concept, it's a discipline, a way of life. When I finally understood this, I stopped looking at prosperity as a destination and started experiencing it as a process. It wasn't about waiting until I had the perfect life to feel abundant. It was about feeling abundant first, and then letting life catch up to that vibration. And here's the irony. When you live this way, prosperity stops being something you chase. It becomes something that chases you. Opportunities start seeking you out. People want to work with you. Life begins to flow. So let me leave you with this thought. You don't have to wait. You don't have to earn some invisible badge of worthiness before prosperity arrives. You already have the dial in your hands. The only question is, what frequency are you choosing to tune into today? Are you aligned with fear, doubt, and limitation? Or are you aligned with possibility, abundance, and success? The prosperity formula begins here, not with money in the bank, not with a perfect career, not with external validation, but with alignment. Because once you align with abundance on the inside, everything on the outside begins to transform. And that, more than anything else, is the core principle that changes everything. Topic 3. Reprogramming the mind, escaping the cycle of scarcity. When I began aligning with prosperity, I quickly realized something profound. My old mindset was my greatest enemy. For years, I had been living inside a mental prison built from scarcity, fear, and limitation. Every thought I repeated, every belief I carried, was shaping the reality I was experiencing. And if I wanted to step into true success, I couldn't just change my actions. I had to reprogram my mind. Think of it this way. Your mind is like software. If the program running in the background is full of bugs, no matter how powerful the computer is, the results will be faulty. My mind had been programmed since childhood with ideas like money is hard to earn, rich people are greedy, success is for others, not for me. These thoughts didn't feel like programs. They felt like truths, but they weren't truths. They were codes I had unconsciously accepted, and as long as I kept running them, they kept producing the same broken results. Scarcity is not just about having little money. It's about the lens through which you see the world. In scarcity, every opportunity looks dangerous. Every risk feels overwhelming. Every dream feels unrealistic. Scarcity whispers in your ear, be careful, stay small, don't try, don't hope. And the more you listen, the more your world shrinks. That was the cycle I lived in for years, a self-fulfilling prophecy where fear created lack, and lack reinforced more fear. But here's what changed everything for me. I realized that thoughts are not commands. They are habits. They are patterns. And just like any habit, They can be broken and replaced. The brain is plastic, flexible, always rewiring itself based on what we feed it. Which means no matter how deep your old programming runs, you have the power to install a new operating system. That is the essence of reprogramming the mind, breaking free from scarcity and installing prosperity. I began small. I caught myself every time I said, "I can't afford this." Instead, I rephrased it too. "How can I afford this?" That one shift turned a closed door into an open question. I stopped saying, "I'm not lucky," and began telling myself, "I create my own luck." Slowly, the language I used became seeds, and those seeds began to grow into new beliefs. The mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's repeated. Repeat scarcity, and it feels real. Repeat abundance, and it becomes real. Of course, it wasn't easy. Scarcity thoughts are sticky. They disguise themselves as caution, as realism, even as responsibility. I had to fight daily to notice them and to challenge them. But over time, something incredible happened. My default settings changed. Instead of immediately doubting, I began expecting. Instead of fearing failure, I began anticipating growth. My mind was no longer a prison. It became a compass pointing me toward possibility. Reprogramming the mind is not about ignoring reality. It's about reshaping it. Because reality is not fixed. Reality bends to perception. What you consistently believe, you consistently create. If you walk through life convinced that nothing works for you, life will gladly confirm that belief. But if you walk convinced that opportunities are everywhere, life will also confirm that. It's not magic. It's alignment between inner programming and outer experience. The prosperity formula demands this reprogramming, because without it, you'll always sabotage your own success. You'll make money but find ways to lose it. You'll attract opportunities but talk yourself out of them. You'll meet the right people but doubt your worth and push them away. Scarcity is not just a thought. It's a pattern of self-sabotage. And the only way to break it is to consciously override it with abundance thinking. So, how do you do it? You begin by watching your language, because words are the bridge between thought and reality. You then feed your mind daily with messages of prosperity. Books, audios, affirmations, mentors who expand your vision instead of shrinking it. And you practice gratitude, because gratitude is the most powerful antidote to scarcity. Scarcity says, "I don't have enough." Gratitude says, "I already have more than enough." And from that foundation, more flows to you. The day I fully embraced this was the day my life turned around. I stopped waiting for the world to change before I could think differently. I began thinking differently, and the world changed in response. And once my mind was reprogrammed, the cycle of scarcity lost its grip on me. So I want you to reflect. What beliefs are running your life today? Which thoughts do you keep repeating that might be shaping your reality in ways you don't even notice? If you truly want prosperity, you must become the architect of your own mind. Because only when you reprogram the software within can you run the prosperity formula without. Topic 4. The power of belief, turning invisible into inevitable. As I continued on my journey with the prosperity formula, one truth became undeniable. Everything rises and falls on belief. What you believe, you build. What you doubt, you destroy. Belief is not just a quiet thought in the back of your mind. It is the architect of your reality. And once I understood that, I realized that the invisible world of my beliefs was shaping every visible result in my life. For years, my beliefs had been my invisible ceiling. I thought success was possible, but only for other people. I believed prosperity was real, but maybe not for me. I wanted abundance, but deep down, I doubted if I deserved it. And because my beliefs were weak, my actions were hesitant. I would start something, then quit. I would dream big, then shrink back at the first sign of resistance. My beliefs were quietly sabotaging me, and I didn't even know it. The power of belief works in both directions. When you believe in scarcity, you unconsciously make decisions that confirm scarcity. When you believe in limitation, you act in ways that reinforce limitation. But when you believe in possibility, your entire posture changes. You take risks that expand you. You see opportunities where others see problems. You persist when others quit. Belief is not wishful thinking. It is the foundation of every choice you make. Think about it. Every great achievement in history began with belief. The Wright brothers believed human flight was possible when everyone laughed at the idea. Visionaries believed in electricity, in medicine, in technology long before the world had proof. They lived in the reality of their belief until the world caught up. That is the power you hold too. When you believe, you give life to the invisible and begin to make it inevitable. I realized my biggest limitation wasn't lack of resources, education, or connections. It was my lack of belief. I was carrying the blueprint of failure inside me and wondering why my life kept building walls instead of doors. So I made a decision. If belief was the foundation of everything, then I would build mine strong, unshakable, untouchable. How do you strengthen belief? By feeding it evidence. At first, I didn't have much evidence in the outer world. My bank account wasn't growing, my career wasn't booming, and my opportunities felt scarce. But I learned that you don't need external evidence to build internal belief. You can create evidence in the form of small wins, daily commitments, and constant reminders of what's possible. I began to celebrate progress, no matter how small. If I saved $10, I told myself, see, prosperity is flowing. If I had a meaningful conversation, I said, look, opportunities are coming. Slowly, these small wins stacked up, and with them, my belief grew stronger. Belief also requires protection. You can't build strong belief if you are surrounded by voices that constantly tear it down. I had to distance myself from environments that fed negativity, from conversations that glorified scarcity, from people who told me to be realistic whenever I shared my vision. Realistic, I discovered, was just another word for limited. To grow my belief, I immersed myself in voices of expansion, mentors, books, teachings, and communities that reinforced the truth of abundance. The more I surrounded myself with prosperity, the more natural it felt to believe in it. And then came the magic. As my belief strengthened, my reality shifted. I noticed myself making bolder moves, stepping into opportunities I would have once avoided, carrying myself with confidence I never had before. And life responded. Doors opened. People noticed. Prosperity began to take root in my life, not because the external world had suddenly changed, but because my internal world finally aligned with it. This is the secret most people miss. You don't need to wait until you see proof to believe. You must believe first, and the proof will follow. That is the nature of the prosperity formula. Belief is the seed, and reality is the harvest. If you plant doubt, you harvest failure. If you plant belief, you harvest success. So I ask you now, what are you choosing to believe? Are you believing in your limitations or in your potential? Are you believing in scarcity or in abundance? Your beliefs are not neutral. They are active forces shaping your future. For me, everything changed when I decided to no longer entertain doubt as my default. I chose belief. I chose to believe in my worth, in my potential, in the reality of prosperity. And that choice turned the invisible into the inevitable. The prosperity formula cannot work without belief. It is the cornerstone, the foundation, the force that gives life to everything else. Once you decide to believe, not halfway, not when it's convenient, but fully, unshakably, you activate the principle that turns dreams into destiny. And that, more than anything else, is the power of belief. Topic 5. The discipline of daily habits. Building prosperity. Brick by brick. One of the greatest lessons I learned on this journey is that prosperity is not built in grand gestures, sudden windfalls, or lucky breaks. Prosperity is built in the small, consistent actions you take every single day. It's the discipline of habits that either builds your future or destroys it. For a long time, I kept waiting for one big breakthrough. The business deal, the perfect idea, the chance encounter that would change everything overnight. But the truth is, prosperity doesn't arrive in one giant step. It arrives brick by brick, habit by habit, choice by choice. The difference between those who thrive and those who struggle is rarely intelligence or talent. It's consistency. Prosperous people don't just act when they feel motivated. They act because they've built habits that carry them forward, even when motivation fades. They don't rely on luck. They rely on structure, and that structure is made up of daily disciplines that align them with the prosperity formula. When I look back at my own transformation, it wasn't one big moment that shifted everything. It was a collection of new habits that slowly rewired my life. Waking up early to spend the first minutes of my day focusing on gratitude and vision instead of worry. writing down my goals as if they were already achieved, tracking every dollar so I could master money instead of letting it master me, investing a little time each day in learning, reading, and expanding my mindset. These habits didn't make me rich overnight, but they began to shift the foundation of who I was becoming. Here's what I realized. Your habits are proof of what you believe about yourself. If you believe you're powerless, your habits will show it. Procrastination, neglect, excuses. But if you believe you are destined for prosperity, your habits will reflect it. Discipline, focus, growth. Every day, your habits whisper the truth about what you really believe. And if you want to change your life, you must change what you do daily. Habits are powerful because they compound. One day of saving money doesn't change much. One day of gratitude doesn't shift your life. One day of discipline doesn't transform your body or your business. But repeated day after day, the compounding effect is unstoppable. Just like interest grows in a bank account, the interest of your habits grows in your life. And over time, the small things you do become the big results you see. Of course, building habits isn't easy. At first, my old patterns fought back hard. Sleeping late felt comfortable. Spending without thinking felt natural. Complaining felt easier than being grateful. But I knew that if I kept living the same way, I would keep producing the same results. So I forced myself to push through the discomfort of change. And after weeks, then months, something shifted. What once felt hard began to feel normal. What once felt like discipline began to feel like identity. I wasn't forcing habits anymore. I was becoming the kind of person who naturally lived them. That's the true power of habits. They don't just change what you do, they change who you are. The prosperity formula requires that shift. Prosperity doesn't flow to someone who occasionally thinks positively or sporadically takes action. It flows to the person whose daily life is a reflection of abundance, discipline, and alignment. The formula is activated in the small, repeated moments that no one else sees, in what you do when no one is watching. So I want you to reflect. What are your habits saying about you right now? Are they pulling you closer to prosperity or keeping you chained to scarcity? Do your mornings set you up for success, or do they drag you back into stress? Are you feeding your mind with growth or numbing it with distraction? Every habit is either a brick in the foundation of your prosperity or a crack that weakens it. For me, the breakthrough was realizing that I didn't need to overhaul my entire life in one day. I just needed to choose one habit, one small shift, and stay consistent. Then another, then another. Over time, those bricks built a new foundation. That foundation built a new life. And that life became living proof that prosperity isn't luck. It's discipline lived daily. Prosperity is not a mystery, it's a method. And the method is written in your habits. Build them wisely, protect them fiercely, and repeat them faithfully. Because the life you desire is not waiting for one giant leap. It is waiting for the daily steps you take to build it. Topic 6. The energy of gratitude, unlocking the flow of abundance. There is a reason gratitude is at the heart of every wisdom tradition, every philosophy of abundance, and every successful life story. Gratitude is not just saying thank you when something good happens. Gratitude is a state of being, a frequency, an energy that transforms how you see the world, and, more importantly, how the world responds to you. Gratitude unlocks prosperity because it shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present, from what you lack to what you already have. And what you focus on expands. For years, I lived with the belief that I would finally be grateful once I had more money, more freedom, more success. I thought gratitude was something you feel after the breakthrough, after the blessing, after the dream comes true. But that belief kept me trapped because I was postponing gratitude, and in postponing gratitude, I was postponing prosperity. What I discovered is that gratitude is not the result of abundance. It is the cause of it. Think about it. When you focus only on what you don't have, your mind reinforces scarcity. You become blind to opportunities, deaf to possibilities, and numb to the blessings already surrounding you. But when you choose gratitude, even in the smallest things, your perception shifts. You begin to see doors where before you only saw walls. You notice resources where before you saw nothing. Gratitude literally trains your brain to recognize abundance. And when you recognize it, you attract more of it. I remember when I first committed to a daily gratitude practice. At that time, my circumstances hadn't changed. I still had financial struggles. I still carried doubts. I still felt like I was far from the life I envisioned. But each morning, I forced myself to write down 5 things I was grateful for. At first, it felt silly, mechanical, even pointless. Some days all I could write was, "I'm grateful for the air I breathe. I'm grateful for the roof over my head." But little by little, something inside me shifted. I started noticing beauty in the ordinary, blessings in the small, and opportunities in what once seemed insignificant. My energy changed, and soon, so did my circumstances. Gratitude doesn't erase problems, but it changes how you meet them. A grateful mind is resilient. It looks at challenges and says, "This too has value. This too is shaping me." Gratitude transforms obstacles into lessons, delays into preparation, and setbacks into setups. And when you live in that state, you no longer waste energy on complaining, comparing, or resenting. Instead, you invest energy in creating, building, and receiving. Science now confirms what wisdom has always known. Gratitude rewires the brain. It reduces stress, boosts creativity, and strengthens relationships. People who live in gratitude not only feel happier, they attract better opportunities because their energy is magnetic. Have you noticed how people love being around someone who radiates gratitude? It's contagious. It inspires trust, collaboration, and generosity. Gratitude multiplies itself in every area of life. The prosperity formula cannot work without gratitude, because without gratitude, you will never feel rich enough, good enough, or ready enough, no matter how much you achieve. Gratitude creates the sense of sufficiency that allows abundance to flow freely. When you say, "I am grateful now," you signal to the universe that you are ready for more. Not from a place of desperation, but from a place of overflow. So let me ask you, what are you grateful for today? Not when things get better, not when the money arrives, not when the dream manifests. Today. Because today is where your power lies, and gratitude is the switch that turns on that power. I can tell you this with certainty. The more I practiced gratitude, the more prosperity found me. Not because my circumstances magically changed overnight, but because gratitude changed me. It made me a magnet for opportunities, a steward of blessings, and a co-creator of abundance. Gratitude is not optional in the prosperity formula. It is essential. It is the key that unlocks the flow of abundance, the force that transforms enough into more, and the energy that makes prosperity not just possible, but inevitable. Choose gratitude, practice gratitude, live gratitude, and watch as your life overflows with success and prosperity. Topic 7. The Circle of Influence, Surrounding Yourself with Prosperity. One of the greatest revelations I had while walking this path was the undeniable truth that your environment shapes your destiny. You cannot grow prosperity in a toxic atmosphere. You cannot rise when you are constantly surrounded by voices pulling you down. The people, conversations, and influences you allow into your life act like soil for the seed of your potential. Fertile soil produces growth. Poisoned soil suffocates it. And for years, I didn't realize that part of the reason I was stuck was because I was planting my dreams in barren ground. I used to believe I was strong enough to resist negativity, that I could stay focused no matter who I was around. But the truth is, no one is immune to influence. Slowly, quietly, the voices around you become the voice inside you. If you spend your days with people who complain, who doubt, who glorify scarcity, you begin to carry their energy. And before you know it, you're repeating their words, living their limitations, and shrinking to fit their small vision of life. When I finally understood this, I had to make hard choices. I had to distance myself from relationships that were draining me, from environments that normalized failure, from conversations that poisoned my belief in abundance. It wasn't easy. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones least equipped to see our potential. Sometimes the places that feel familiar are the very cages holding us back. But if you want to live by the prosperity formula, you must have the courage to protect your circle of influence. At the same time, I discovered something powerful. Just as negative influence can destroy you, positive influence can elevate you. Surround yourself with people who believe in growth, who speak the language of possibility, who encourage discipline and vision, and you begin to absorb their energy. Their words become fuel. Their success becomes proof. Their belief becomes contagious. I remember the first time I sat in a room with people who thought bigger than I ever had. At first, I felt out of place. like I didn't belong. But as I listened to their conversations, I felt my own vision expand. They weren't complaining about problems, they were discussing solutions. They weren't obsessing over scarcity, they were strategizing abundance. And something in me clicked. I realized that prosperity wasn't just an individual effort, it was a collective energy. By placing myself in a circle of influence that aligned with success, I was accelerating my own growth. The circle of influence is not just about people. It's also about what you consume daily. The books you read, the shows you watch, the podcasts you listen to, the social media you scroll, all of it influences your mindset. If you constantly feed your mind with negativity, gossip, and fear, don't be surprised when you feel stuck. But if you intentionally feed yourself messages of abundance, stories of success, and teachings of wisdom, you are literally programming yourself for prosperity. Here's the principle. You cannot rise higher than the environment you immerse yourself in. If your circle normalizes scarcity, you will live in scarcity. If your circle normalizes prosperity, you will rise into prosperity. That's why protecting your influence is not optional. It's essential. So I want you to reflect. Who is in your circle right now? Are they feeding your growth or are they draining it? Do they speak life into your dreams or do they laugh at them? Do they expand your vision or do they shrink it? The prosperity formula demands honesty here because your circle is either your greatest asset or your greatest liability. I made a decision years ago that I would only plant my dreams in fertile soil. I would only surround myself with voices that lifted me, mentors that challenged me, and communities that inspired me. And that decision alone transformed my journey. Because the moment I changed my environment, my results began to change too. Prosperity is not just an inner alignment, it is also an outer environment. Align your circle with abundance, and you will rise faster than you ever thought possible. Protect it fiercely, choose it wisely, and nurture it daily. Because your circle of influence is not just shaping who you are, it is shaping who you are becoming. And who you are becoming is the key to the prosperity waiting for you. Topic 8. The wealth of service. Expanding prosperity by giving. There was a moment in my journey when I realized that true prosperity is never complete if it ends with you. Prosperity, by its very nature, is meant to flow, to circulate, to multiply through generosity and service. If abundance stops at your hands, it begins to decay. But when it flows through you to others, it expands, strengthens, and returns multiplied. The prosperity formula is not just about what you gain, it is also about what you give. For much of my early life, I lived with the mindset of holding tightly to everything I had. I believed that if I gave too much, whether it was time, money, or energy, I would be left with less. Scarcity taught me to cling. It whispered, "Protect yourself, because there isn't enough to go around." And the more I clung, the more I felt empty. The more I tried to protect what little I had, the more life seemed to slip through my fingers. But as I leaned deeper into the prosperity formula, I discovered a paradox. The more I gave, the richer I became. Not only in finances, but in joy, in relationships, in opportunities. Giving opened channels I didn't even know existed. It was as if prosperity had been waiting all along for me to let go, to circulate what I had so that more could flow back to me. Giving is not just about charity, it's about energy. Every time you give with a genuine heart, you are sending a signal that you live in abundance. You are declaring, "I have enough. I am enough." There is always more where that came from, and that signal reshapes your inner world and attracts more abundance into your outer world. Service becomes a magnet for prosperity. I remember when I started practicing this intentionally. I didn't have much to give financially, but I gave what I could. I bought a meal for someone in need. I volunteered my time to share knowledge and encouragement. I helped without expecting anything in return. And each time I did, something incredible happened. I felt wealthier, not poorer. My sense of sufficiency grew. And soon, real opportunities began to mirror that feeling. Unexpected income, connections, collaborations, doors opening where none existed before. This principle is woven into the very fabric of life. Rivers that stop flowing become stagnant. Muscles that are never used grow weak. Energy that is not circulated becomes blocked. Prosperity is the same. It must move, it must flow, or it dies. Giving is the circulation of abundance, and service is the practice that keeps prosperity alive. But let me be clear, giving is not about sacrifice to the point of depletion. True giving does not drain you, it energizes you. It doesn't leave you with less, it expands what you have. The prosperity formula teaches us that you cannot outgive abundance. The more you give, the more you grow. The key is to give with joy, with authenticity, with a heart that trusts in the infinite source of prosperity. So ask yourself, how can I serve today? How can I take what I have, my time, my talents, my resources, and use them to lift someone else? It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. A kind word, a helping hand, an act of generosity, a willingness to listen. These are seeds of prosperity, and every seed you plant comes back to you in a harvest far greater than what you gave. When I embraced this principle, I stopped fearing loss. I stopped worrying about running out, because I realized that the act of giving was itself proof that I was already prosperous. And when you live with that awareness, prosperity cannot help but expand. The prosperity formula is not complete until it flows outward. Prosperity that ends with you is fragile. Prosperity that flows through you is unshakable. When you give, you activate one of the most powerful laws of abundance, circulation. And once circulation begins, prosperity is no longer just something you receive. It becomes something you embody, something you create, and something you share. So remember this, the wealth you build is not just measured by what you keep, but by what you contribute. Service turns success into significance. Generosity turns abundance into legacy. And giving transforms prosperity from something temporary into something eternal. Topic 9. Resilience and persistence, rising stronger through challenges. Every path to prosperity is filled with obstacles. No one escapes struggle, setbacks, or seasons of uncertainty. The difference between those who thrive and those who give up is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of resilience and persistence. If the prosperity formula has taught me anything, it is this. Challenges are not barriers, they are bridges. Every difficulty you face contains the seed of growth, and every setback is an invitation to rise stronger. For years, I saw challenges as proof that I wasn't meant to succeed. Every rejection felt like a sign to quit. Every failure whispered that I didn't have what it took. I thought prosperity meant a smooth road, free of hardship. But then I realized that challenges are not the opposite of prosperity. They are part of the process of creating it. Diamonds are only formed under pressure. Muscles only grow through resistance. And character is only built in the fire of adversity. Resilience is the ability to bend without breaking. It is the decision to keep standing even when life tries to knock you down. Persistence is the willingness to keep moving even when the path feels heavy and unclear. Together, resilience and persistence are the engines of prosperity. Without them, every dream dies at the first storm. With them, every storm becomes a stepping stone. I remember seasons in my own life when everything seemed to collapse. Finances drained, opportunities vanished, plans crumbled. I felt defeated. But in those moments, I had a choice. I could surrender to the weight of circumstances, or I could rise and push forward anyway. It wasn't easy. It rarely is. But each time I chose persistence over quitting, resilience over despair, something inside me grew stronger. And eventually, my circumstances shifted too. The prosperity formula requires this mindset. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" That shift alone changes everything. Challenges stop being curses and start becoming classrooms. You begin to extract wisdom from pain, strategy from struggle, and strength from failure. And over time, you realize that the very obstacles you once hated are the ones that shaped you into someone capable of holding prosperity. Persistence doesn't mean never feeling tired or discouraged. It means you keep going even when you do. Resilience doesn't mean pretending you're unshaken. It means you bend, you adapt, and you grow through the storm. The most successful people in history are not those who never failed. They are those who refused to let failure define them. They kept showing up. They kept planting seeds. They kept believing even when nothing seemed to work. And eventually, their persistence created breakthroughs. There is a law of life. If you refuse to quit, you cannot lose. You may fall, you may fail, you may stumble 1,000 times, But if you keep getting up, eventually you will rise. Persistence guarantees progress, and resilience guarantees survival. Together, they guarantee prosperity. So let me ask you, how do you handle your challenges? Do you shrink when storms come, or do you decide to stand taller? Do you quit when doors close, or do you knock louder until they open? Your answer will determine not just your success, but your capacity to hold it when it arrives. Looking back, I am grateful for every obstacle I faced, because without them, I would not be the person I am today. My strength was forged in the fire of struggle. My faith was built in seasons of waiting. My persistence was trained by the very failures I once hated. And now I see that prosperity is not about avoiding storms. It is about learning to dance in the rain. The prosperity formula is incomplete without resilience and persistence. They are the proof that you are serious about your destiny. They are the forces that transform setbacks into setups and failures into foundations. With resilience, no storm can break you. With persistence, no obstacle can stop you. And together, they ensure that no matter how many times you fall, prosperity will always be waiting when you rise again. Topic 10. Vision and Purpose. Living prosperity with meaning. At the core of the prosperity formula lies one final principle: vision and purpose. Because prosperity without direction is emptiness, and success without meaning is just another form of poverty. You can accumulate wealth, status, and recognition, but if you don't know why you're pursuing them or how they connect to your deeper purpose, you will always feel a sense of lack. True prosperity is not just having more. It is knowing who you are, where you're going, and why it matters. For years, I confused goals with vision. I thought prosperity meant chasing achievements, a bigger income, a better car, a nicer house. But even when I reached those milestones, the satisfaction faded quickly. Why? Because goals can give you a temporary boost, but only vision can give you lasting fulfillment. Vision is the bigger picture, the guiding star that keeps you aligned even when circumstances shift. And purpose is the fuel that keeps you moving when obstacles appear. When I finally asked myself, why? Why do I want prosperity? Why do I want success? Why do I want abundance? Everything changed. My answers took me deeper than money or possessions. I wanted prosperity so I could serve at a higher level, impact lives, create freedom for my family, and leave a legacy that outlives me. That clarity transformed how I approached everything. I stopped chasing prosperity for its own sake and started creating prosperity as a tool to express my purpose. Vision gives meaning to discipline. It gives context to sacrifice. It gives strength to persistence. Without vision, habits feel like chores, challenges feel unbearable, and giving feels like loss. But with vision, every action is infused with meaning. You are no longer just working hard. You are building something greater. You are no longer just surviving. You are shaping destiny. Purpose also protects you. It shields you from distractions, from the temptation to compare yourself to others, from chasing goals that don't truly matter to you. When you know your purpose, you stop wasting energy on what is meaningless. You invest your time and resources into what aligns with your calling, and that alignment is where prosperity flourishes. The most prosperous people I have ever studied all had one thing in common. They lived with vision and purpose. Their wealth wasn't just measured in numbers, it was measured in impact. Their abundance wasn't just for themselves, it was for the generations after them. They didn't just ask, "What can I gain?" They asked, "What can I give? What can I build? What legacy can I leave?" And that is why their prosperity endures. So I ask you, what is your vision? Not just for the next year, but for your life. What is your purpose? Not just in your career, but in your existence. When you connect prosperity to these deeper truths, you activate the highest level of the prosperity formula. You stop measuring success by temporary milestones and start living prosperity as a way of being. For me, prosperity is no longer about proving something or achieving for the sake of achievement. It is about alignment with purpose. It is about using my gifts fully, serving deeply, creating abundantly, and leaving behind a path others can follow. That is prosperity with meaning. That is wealth that endures. And here's the beauty: vision and purpose are not reserved for a chosen few. They are available to anyone willing to ask the deeper questions and listen for the answers. The prosperity formula is not just about external wealth. It is about internal clarity. Once you know your why, the how becomes easier, the when becomes less stressful, and the what becomes inevitable. This is the final key. Prosperity without vision is fleeting. Prosperity with vision is eternal. Anchor your success in purpose, and you will never feel empty, no matter how much you achieve. Because true prosperity is not about what you accumulate, but about who you become, what you contribute, and the legacy you leave behind. You've just walked through the 10 keys of the prosperity formula, from breaking free of scarcity to aligning with gratitude, discipline, service, resilience, and vision. Now the question is, what will you do with it? Prosperity is not found in just hearing these principles. It is found in living them, one choice, one habit, one day at a time. If this message spoke to you, if you felt even one spark of clarity or hope, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and let's spread this energy of abundance together. And if you're ready to keep going deeper into success, abundance, manifestation, and prosperity, subscribe to the channel now and turn on the notifications. This is just the beginning. The prosperity formula is a lifelong journey, and I'd love to walk it with you. Remember, prosperity is not about what you get, it's about who you become. So start today, choose abundance, live prosperity, and let's build this future together.